Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's sunrise drive here at Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. As you can all see, it's a beautiful misty morning here, and we're all looking forward to an exciting morning exploring this wonderful piece of wilderness in South Africa. We are situated very close to the hyena den sites, and we just thought we would start the show here to show you the beautiful sunrise and the mist that we do have in the lower lying areas. Oh, look at this, right in front of us. Well, this is good prospects for us, because I'm fairly certain the two hyena that just walked in front of us are on their way back to the hyena den site. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be best for us to get into position at the hyena den and wait for them to arrive, because when they do arrive, if there are any hyena there, we can expect an elaborate greeting, and that'll be great to see. This morning, Andrew's on camera, and Nikki and Tara are in the final control. Steph and Mark have headed out in the other vehicle to help us look for animals, and Brent's having the morning off. He's been on drive consistently for quite a few days now, and it's time for him to recharge the batteries. The hyena are on their way in. I have seen them to our left coming towards the den site, which is just in front of us. And like I say, we can expect to see an elaborate greeting when they do get here. No, the tricky thing is to determine where the best place is going to be to wait for this greeting that is about to happen. But I'm going to take our chances on this side of the termite mound that they use as their den. And the reason for that is that we often see a lot of activity from this little point. So I'm hoping the same thing happens in just a few moments. One hyena has just arrived. It is going to pop out. There it is. And it's looking off into the distance where I did see another hyena just move off to, so let's wait and see what happens here. Now, it's hard to tell whether this is a male or a female and exactly which hyena this is, as they all do look very similar. But I'm guessing that this could be a male, judging from the very horizontal belly. Oh, here comes another hyena. Let's see what happens here. There we go. That's the greeting we were hoping for. The individual was acting submissively, the one that was standing still, and listen carefully now, they're getting excited. We may even get some audio if we're lucky from them. You'll notice how its tail's curled up. They do this when they are greeting one another and when they get excited, because they've got scent glands on their anus which they will wipe on blades of grass, and by presenting its tail up like that, it's making it easier for the other hyena to pick up on the different scents, which can tell a huge story to them. Sadly, we don't understand, and our sense of smell isn't good enough to process this information, but to them, they can read in to one another's sense in a very in-depth detail. Just going to try and reposition ever so slightly, as my pre-planned spot has not been as good as I hoped it would be. Now, if we're lucky, there are 3 little cubs that live within this termite mound, and you'll notice as Andrew pans across that there are a few burrows that lead into this den. Now let's watch closely. I'm hoping some of the inquisitive little cubs are going to pop their heads out and come and play for us. They'll naturally be a little bit cautious of any other animals coming up to the den sites, and it's safest for them to be hidden within the network of tunnels underground. When there is any excitement with the adults. As you can see, it's sniffing around very intently. Wouldn't it be nice to know exactly what it is that it is smelling and what it can process from these smells? They're all moving around in all the spots where we can't see them. So again, I'm just going to try and reposition ever so slightly. What I have noticed with this den site in the past is that occasionally hyena that are obviously related to this clan in some way will sometimes come past and then continue off to wherever they will be planning on spending their day. And it looks like that may be happening this morning. There was 1 adult here when we arrived and another 2 adults that we saw just after we went live that joined the den site. Now all 3 of them have headed off into this thick bush to our left. But I think it's worth hanging around because they are moving quite a lot and they could well come back to the den. And I've just seen one turn around now and it's heading back towards us, so let's get ready to see what happens here. Now these are the same 2 that arrived together, I think. Like I was saying though, it's hard to tell exactly which members are the close-knit members of this clan, and there's a fair amount of unknown between us as to exactly who's who. We can establish who the mothers are, but even then it can be difficult to distinguish the 2. And I'm sure a lot of the viewers are actually better at identifying these hyena than we are because of all the screenshots that you managed to capture. So if you do have any thoughts as to who's who, please let us know. All your help is hugely appreciated. While we're waiting for the hyena to come back, I've just noticed a golden orbweb spider in front of us, and it's collected a fair amount of dew over the course of the evening, and the misty weather that we had earlier this morning and last night would have definitely contributed to this dew that we can see on its web. Interestingly enough, some of the golden orbweb spiders are beginning to not maintain their webs very well, but this individual certainly has got a well-formed web. And you'll notice that the spider is sitting in the middle with its stomach facing towards us and its back facing away from us. And you also notice a line of debris kind of through the center of the web. That's all the old exoskeletons of carcasses that it's fed on. How they do feed on their prey once they've caught them is that they would simply suck out the hemolymph or bodily fluids from their prey. They won't be able to necessarily chew through parts of the prey. They rather just suck all the insides out. So those are all the exoskeletons of little insects and bugs that have been caught. Well, I think our timing was just about spot on. Oh, it looks like one hyena's returning, because I thought they'd all moved off, and there's no set roster with their plans. They do come and go to the den site at various stages. There are obviously peaks in the early morning and late afternoon when we can expect to see them here, but it's not guaranteed. So I think we've got off to a great start with the sighting we've had of them this morning. Andrew, if you can try and get the one on the right show. Sorry, buddy. Oh, they are doing their anal pasting, where they leave scent from a scent gland. And what they'll do is they'll walk over a blade of grass or a twig and rub this gland on it. And I think we may see this one do it again. Let's watch closely. This one has a very distinctive notch in its ear, which I have not noticed in the past on any of the hyena here, but again, that could just be me. But it does have a very distinctive notch on the upper edge of its left ear, so that's a good diagnostic feature that we can look for in the future. And you'll also notice that I said they could be males because their stomachs are quite horizontal. Now, basically, the females will often have a more prominent vertical ridge on their belly as it gets close to their hindquarters, whereas the males will typically have a flatter stomach as it gets towards those hindquarters. But basically, it's difficult to establish the difference between male and female hyena. They both have appendages which appear to be very similar to one another, the males and the females. So looking between their legs is not a sure way of telling whether they are male or female. And it's great that they're active this morning, but it's making Andrew's job a little bit difficult on the camera because they are moving through some quite thick bush. I'm just going to turn around again. I foresee that they are going to come back and do another lap sniffing around the den. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, welcome and good to have you with us. It's important to realize that this is a live safari. It's happening this very second, and it's also an interactive safari. So if you'd like to ask questions at any given stage, please do so. And to do it, you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. So get your questions through, and Nikki and Tara and the Final Control will do their best to get those through to us. And we've already got our first question through, all the way from Texas. And good morning, Catherine, and welcome on board with us. Catherine is interested to know whether hyenas are closely related to dogs, and it's a good question, Catherine. They certainly appear to be very dog-like, but interestingly enough, they're more closely related to cats. So that's obviously got to do with a lot of their internal anatomy that may be similar to cats. And interestingly enough, in terms of their taxonomic breakdown, you get the dog family, Canidae, and the cat family, Felidae. Hyena fit into their own unique family called Hyenidae. So they're a very unique animal and are more cat-like than dog-like, according to...
Do you see any hyenas?
I don't see any hyena, Andrew.
It's just
Andrew was just double-checking that we weren't missing anything, and I did see one hyena drifting off into the thick vegetation, so it may be that the show here is over, which is not a bad thing. We've had a good start to the morning, and when viewing animals, it's always best to see them when they're interactive and moving about, not necessarily sleeping, which a lot of them do. So I think we've got off to a solid start with the hyena den site this morning. Sadly no visual of the cubs, but they are here, so if you'd like to see some cute little hyena cubs, you're going to have to tune into some more drives, because they are here and they are very inquisitive and make for some great viewing. This morning though was not our lucky day with the cubs. Good morning, Shanae. We've just got another question through on Twitter, and Shanae is interested to know how would we be able to tell the difference between a golden orb web spider, which is the spider we had a brief look at a little bit earlier, and its cousin, the garden orb web spider. And that is a good question and quite an easy one to answer, Shanae. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find another golden orb web spider, which shouldn't take us too long. All the spider webs are glowing like lanterns because of the dew that's settled on the webbing with the sun coming through it. So it's making seeing the spider webs easy. We just need to find the right one now. No, I didn't. So that's interesting. I was so busy looking for spiders that I didn't see two of the tallest animals that we get in this area. Thank you, Andrew. So Shanae, I am going to answer your question, but I am going to look for a golden orb web spider and its web before I tell you how to differentiate between the two. In the meantime, though, we can enjoy this sighting because there's not too many giraffe around at the moment, and even at the best of times, this area does not have a huge giraffe population, so very happy to see these two ladies this morning. And as one individual flicked its head there, you would have noticed a small little flock of birds flying off, and those are very useful birds for a lot of the animals here, because they will feed on the ectoparasites, the ticks that will suck blood from the giraffe, and they are called oxpeckers. I'm just going to creep forward ever so slightly. Looks like the giraffe are feeding towards us, so we're in for a treat here. And if we look closely, we will see that they're feeding on a very thorny plant called an acacia tree, and you'll find a lot of the tastier plants in this area have got security in the form of thorns. So this doesn't stop the giraffe, but it may slow them down a little bit. This is absolutely beautiful with the mist in the background. And I'm just going to establish, okay, it looks like I know where we can head now for our next angle. So we're just going to shoot ahead, and we can actually possibly have the sunlight behind us, and we should get some beautiful, beautiful shots of them shortly. So get ready to do your screenshots for those of you who do. And if you don't do screenshots, you should look into doing it, because some of the viewers, Shanae being one of them, who asked the question about the spiders, get some great, great screenshots. So it's a good way for you to get involved. Oh, I saw another spider web and lost focus on the giraffe again. But I'm just going to stop over here and wait for this individual to continue towards us. You may be wondering how I established that they are both ladies, and with the silhouettes of the head and the horns now, or horn-like structures rather, you will notice that they are quite thin, and they also have hair on top of them. There's an oxpecker right in the middle at the moment, so it doesn't have 3 horns, it's just 2 and a bird in the middle. But a thin ossicone, that small horn-like structure. The next one's about to cross here, Andrew. Beautiful. So those small little horns are thinner on the females than on the males, and the males are also bald on top. And the animals are certainly giving us the runaround this morning, and Andrew's been maneuvering that camera in every which way in order to try and bring you the shots, but apologies for when they do disappear behind the bushes. It's not much we can do about it. I think our lens also could be fogging up from the change in temperature, so now that the sun's beating down on our cold camera, it has created a bit of a foggy blur that Andrew's about to rectify. So stand by one, and this is a problem that I have yet to encounter, so an interesting morning we're having here. Andrew, maybe if we just head across to the spider web on the right here, it might be a bit better. There we go. Well, thankfully, there is a golden orb-web spider close to us here, and Andrew's just taking you in a little bit closer to it. And now I'll be able to answer Shanae's question. Shanae's interested to know if you can differentiate between a garden orb-web spider and a golden orb-web spider, and you certainly can. When you're looking at the animals themselves, the golden orb-web spider has got a thinner abdomen, considerably so. The garden orb-web spider's round, not oblong, and It's probably about 3 times the size of the body of this spider. And then there's also something that you'll look for in the web of a garden orb-web spider. It's got an interesting little structure that it weaves into the web called a stabilimentum, and that doesn't probably mean too much to anyone. Basically what you're looking for is a small zip-like structure that's white in coloration and about 2 inches in length. So it weaves this zigzag zip structure shape into the web that's very characteristic of the garden orb-web spider, and you can see this web lacks a little vertical zip below the center of the web. Sadly, we don't see too many garden orb-web spiders, Archer, but if we do, I'll certainly stop and show you that little structure to look for. So I'm just going to try and get into a better position here for Andrew to be able to show you these giraffe. And 1 second, we should be in a decent spot. There we go. So we've just got a question through from Catherine, all the way in Chicago. Good morning, Catherine, and welcome on board with us. Catherine's interested to know whether the golden orb-web spider will rebuild that web every night or every day. And no, they don't. They simply maintain their web once it's built. You do get other spiders, like the bark spider, for example, that will build its web every evening as the sun goes down, and every morning as the sun comes up, it'll actually consume the web. It'll feed on it to not waste those precious resources, and once it's fed on it and taken its web down, essentially, it will relax during the day, hidden in the crack of a tree, and then come nightfall it'll start building its web all again. So we've managed to see that once or twice on previous shows in the evening, the bark spiders building their webs, but it is a great building techniques. So some technical geniuses amongst us, and I'm sure Alex and Eugene will be busy solving us. The fact that I can hear them is useful, because if they do find something, I will be able to at least know what's going on. It's important to check for tracks, especially at road junctions where 2 roads meet. And that's because possibly one animal may have joined onto the road that you haven't been driving on, and that way it's a good point to stop and search and make sure that anything of interest hasn't been walking down the roads that we're driving down. I can see tracks of a small nocturnal animal called the civet, which I guess you could describe almost as a raccoon-like animal. We don't get to see them very often because they are nocturnal and quite secretive, but we often see their tracks in the morning. And for me, just knowing that animals have been here, not necessarily seeing them, but imagining them being here, is almost as good as seeing them in real life. To imagine what they were doing, where they were sniffing about, and just to simply know that they certainly did move here is a prospect that I enjoy. And the road networks help us hugely in piecing together puzzles and understanding what animals have done over the course of the evening when we are sleeping. And it's these tracks and signs that so often lead us to the interesting sightings that we do get to share with you. So we are approaching this dam, the waterhole rather, and we are hoping to find something there. Failing that, hopefully we'll find some tracks of animals along the way. Interestingly enough, speaking of tracks, I've just noticed some giraffe tracks heading down this road. I wonder if it's the same two ladies that we saw. I think it could be, looking by the size of the track and the fact that there are two of them. Sadly, it's not easy for us to show you the tracks as the camera is fixed on a tripod, and often the angle that we would require to show you doesn't work out so well from the fixed camera. But if I do see any of the clear tracks, I will certainly try and show you. So again, that's a useful piece of information that we can assume. I can't be certain, but I'm fairly certain that the two giraffe we just saw would have passed through here either late yesterday evening or even possibly in the course of the night. It's quite a bright moon at the moment, even though it's only half full. It gives off a lot of lights, and you'll find a lot of the daytime animals moving more frequently when the moon is fuller because they have better vision and therefore less concern for predators. And from here to where we saw those two giraffes was probably about a mile as the crow flies. Just got a question through from Grace in Texas. Good morning, Grace, and welcome on board with us. Apologies for the lens. Do you mind passing that cloth up? It's hard for Andrew to wipe it because he can't see what he's doing, but I can. So 1 second. A little bit better, but it is probably just because we're heading directly into the sunlight. Anyway, Grace from Texas, good morning, and thanks for sending your question through. Grace is interested to know, why do the giraffe have those little horns, and what purpose do they serve? Well, to be honest, Grace, they serve a very small purpose, and the reason why I say that is because hundreds and thousands of years ago, the giraffe would have had regular horns, just like the other animals here, which have got a bone inner and a keratin sheath. And over many, many years of evolution, they have not required the need for these horns, and that's why they've slowly shrunk down to these little vestigial horns, which don't actually provide a huge function, especially to the females who don't fight. The males who do fight with one another will swing their necks into one another's bodies, and those horns, I guess, will increase the intensity of the blow, as it's a concentrated point from which all that power will be exerted. But even the male giraffes, because they are small and blunt horns, it goes to show that they don't require sharp needle-like horns like a lot of the other animals in order to either defend themselves and or fight between one another for potential mating prospects. So I guess the long and the short of it is that they're not very aggressive animals and therefore don't need very sharp horns. Even a lot of the animals with horns won't necessarily intend on harming anything or necessarily defending themselves against predators. It's often interspecies combat. You would have noticed Andrew panned across to the waterhole where we were hoping on finding something, and there's nobody home. That's probably because I'm a little bit early to be expecting visitors at this specific bar. As the day heats up and the animals become more thirsty, we can expect an increase in activity at the waterholes. Now, there's a small branch across the road which I just have to remove quickly. And that would have been the elephants coming through and pushing over these branches, and that's something we get used to out here. You would have noticed I was treating that branch very delicately, and the reason for that is because it's got many, many hooked thorns, and I'm actually going to get one off for you and show you these thorns. So as I swivel the branch around slowly,
I think you're a bit close.
I'm a bit too close for Andrew to focus. Sorry, let's move across to here. As I swivel the branch around, you'll notice that it has a long straight thorn, but as I swivel this way, it's also got a little hooked thorn over there that you can see. So, not a branch or tree that you want to get tangled in. It's called a buffalo thorn tree, and it's got these very distinctive thorns and also leaves, which are edible to us if we're desperate for a salad. And it's also, like I said earlier, one of the tastier plants, and the tastier plants, like I say, have got the security in the form of thorns, which make it more difficult for animals to feed on. It doesn't stop them, but it certainly slows them down. And the other interesting thing about this branch is that it's got a very interesting traditional use with the local Zulu tribe that you get in South Africa. And basically, when somebody dies in Zulu customs, if they die away from their home or place of birth, this branch will be used to collect and gather their spirits from wherever they have died in order to take them back to their home place where they'll be buried and where they can rest. So, if, for example, somebody has died away from their home, a branch from their home area will be taken to their place of death, and a ceremony will be performed. Now, when the branch gets taken there, it's taken in a taxi or any form of vehicle. There's no cost involved. But when the branch comes back, because it's carrying somebody's soul, whoever's performing the ceremony and bringing the person's soul back to their home place will actually pay a fare for whatever transport is required for the soul to be transported back to their home, which is a really interesting traditional custom that gets employed. It also has tasty berries that a lot of the animals will feed on. We've seen some great footage of squirrels feeding on these berries, and even we can feed on them. They've got a sugary coating which is quite tasty. Good. The buffalo thorn. Another thing is, you may be wondering why it's called the buffalo thorn, and the reason for that is that they can be used by buffalo who are seeking additional help when being attacked by lions. Now, when they are attacked by lions, if they can manage to reverse into one of these bushes, it'll mean that their rear is protected as the lions cannot get through this tangle of thorns, and that way, just their head protruding and their dangerous end, their sharp end with the horns, they can defend themselves. So that's the reason why it's called a buffalo thorn. I've never seen that happen, but it obviously does happen from time to time, and it really would be interesting to see a buffalo using some vegetation to aid against a lion attack. Texan. Morning, Texan. It's Scott. I'm just wondering if there's any updates, please. Copy. Thank you. Okay, well, that's some good news. We've had a breakthrough and managed to get through to one of the other vehicles. He's also having problems. It appears that everyone's having problems. Who knows, maybe some baboons were playing on one of the repeater antennas last night and they've loosened some cables. I'm not sure. But what I did manage to hear from him is that he has heard no updates, so we're not missing out on any action that other vehicles are enjoying. The only action we're missing out on is with the animals that have yet to be found. So that is what we are currently trying to do. We are trying to find something interesting. And the beauty of being out on safari, regardless of where you are, is that as much as you may think you know about an area, you've got very little impact on what you see. And there's nothing stopping a leopard or a lion being around this very next corner that we drive around. And that's what makes it so exciting and why I love this job, because of the unknown and the excitement of coming across these animals, whatever they may be. I've just seen a leopard track. I'm going to need to get out and look at more than just one track to be able to try and establish whether they are fresh or not. So give me a moment or two just to investigate. It's a male leopard track, and it's in the center part of the road where there's often a strip of grass where the tire tracks seldom run. And because I can't see the tracks anywhere else on the road, it means that in all likelihood this track isn't very fresh, and it's just one track that hasn't been driven over by the vehicles that have been here. So I don't think it's very fresh, but I'm going to just double check on this side of the road. Okay, well, worth a closer look, but sadly, it is an older track. But still nice to know that this is an area that leopards move through. The reason why I know that it was a male leopard's track is because of its size. It was fairly large, and that's an easy way to distinguish between males and females. So we started off this morning with a beautiful misty sunrise, and now the mist has risen and the sun has also risen higher. The hyena den site provided us with some great action early on, and as we were leaving the den we actually got to see two female giraffe, which are animals we don't see very often out here. And you'll find that that determines where animals will be throughout various different wilderness areas in Africa. It's the food and the habitat that will cause increases or decreases in certain populations of various animals. Since then, that's been a little bit quiet on the mammal front, but we did enjoy a bird party where we saw a fork-tailed drongo chasing a white-crested helmet shrike, trying to steal its kill. I think the white-crested helmet shrike had a small caterpillar that the drongos wanted to steal for breakfast. And now, since then, we have been in search of anything of interest, and are making our way through an area where I have been lucky in the past with a lot of great sightings of various animals. And basically we just need to continue searching until we find something, hopefully. The game drive channel is not working too well, so we're all battling to communicate with one another, and that does make our lives a little bit more difficult, because it's difficult to establish where people are searching, what they are searching for, and if they have actually found anything. So we are facing that little difficulty, but that's not a concern, because even alone we have a strong chance of finding something, provided we A, get lucky, that's the ultimate, or B, find some tracks, and that way we can try and track down the animal by following its footprints. So that's A and B, I guess. C would be to listen and to hear. So we could also listen and hear animals, alarm calls, that certain animals may cry out when they see a predator, or simply just some crashing vegetation as a herd of elephants moves through. A few hyena tracks on the road. They move huge distances every evening, the hyena. And it's a common track to see on most of the roads we drive every morning. Just a reminder to those of you who may be joining for the first time, firstly a very warm welcome, and also just to let you know this is a live safari, so it's happening this very second, which is hard to believe, but somehow it's happening. The technology these days allows for it, and it also allows for us to interact, so if you'd like to ask questions at any stage, please do so, and to do so you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Just needed to double check some more tracks there. They were on the left hand side of the road, but it was hyena again. They can be a little bit confusing with leopard or lion tracks from a glance, so I just needed to double check. It's a beautiful, crisp and cool morning here. It's 16 degrees Celsius, which is around 61 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm told. But as the sun creeps up, it's getting notably warmer minute by minute. The last station copying you. Thank you. As you can see, we've got a beautiful Birchall starling iridescing in the morning sunlight. And this is a very good feature when identifying the starlings of this area. They're often this metallic blue that iridesces beautifully when they are in the morning sunlight. If they were in the shade or in a dark area, they would appear to just be a dark blue color without that iridescent sheen. You can hear some birds' alarm calling, and I'm just trying to find out where it is. The power of the mind is an The power of the mind is an incredible thing. I thought I had seen something leopard-like, but it's in fact just a few tufts of grass with a very cottony white flower that I thought was a leopard's tail. That's exactly what I was looking at. You can see those little white puffs of what are the grass's seeds, and that's what got me confused. And it's certainly not the first time I've embarrassed myself on many a safari when you are searching and hoping to find whatever animal it may be, leopard or lion. You come around a corner and you see either a stump or possibly even an antelope, and you think that that may be the lion or leopard that you're looking for, and you stop and you scream, "Lion, leopard!" and get all your guests excited, only to shortly thereafter apologize profusely for pointing them in the direction of a stump. Or once I called some waterbuck a pride of lion. That was an embarrassing one. But the power of the mind is strong when it comes to twisting and contorting whatever we may see to what we may want to see. We've got another game viewer, so maybe they'll have some info for us. Morning, Bernie. Tell us the good news.
I'll tell you what we've been cooking this morning. Did you copy us on the radio? Morning, guys. Morning. There's an extensive team you now drag around the bush.
Yeah.
Have you found anything?
No, nothing yet.
Bloody hell, man. I came this way in the hope that you'll shed some light.
I was hoping to get the same information from you.
Buffaloes have headed towards Chitwa, so there's no buffaloes.
Okay. I haven't seen any tracks or anything of interest, Bernie, so...
My daughter in England, Konzo, heading. The male lions walked out past that way, past First Rock, so they're gone.
Okay.
And this, out of interest, gentlemen, is what happens when you broadside an elephant. So those are two cutting holes.
I wasn't driving, thankfully.
True story. No, we've got no news.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully things...
Look up for you.
Yeah, and you.
All of you.
It was when we got there, but then the adults moved off. It could have changed, because that was quite a while back, so it might be worth popping in.
Good luck, right?
All right, have a good morning.
Bye.
Thank you. Well, you would have probably noticed that Bernie was joking around with us there, saying that, haven't we heard what's going on the radio? And like I said, it's all of us that are collectively having this problem with the radios, and that was great for us just to be able to stop and share whatever information we had, which from both of our sides wasn't too much. What I can tell you though is that a little bit further down this riverbed is apparently a lioness with some cubs. Now, it's just a report that we've had. And it's good prospects for the future, even though we may not be able to see them this morning or tomorrow or the next day. In the future, we can hopefully look forward to seeing a lioness with some newborn cubs. I'm not even sure how many cubs are there, and they're probably tiny little furballs at the moment that she'll be looking after, and they won't be moving huge distances, but as they do grow older, she will begin to move with them more often and probably rejoin with her pride, and that way hopefully we'll be able to get to see her and her babies. are certain areas where we can go and certain areas where we can't go out here, so there's no fences that prevent us. It's simply roads that form boundaries of certain properties where some vehicles can traverse and others cannot. And it's certainly the best way to ensure everyone does have a good time out here, because if there was no order or control in terms of where people could drive, you would get a lot of chaotic scenarios where there's too many people in one place. So it's better to have everybody spread out throughout the reserve. Okay, we've got some good news, folks. Stefan and Mark, who are out helping us this morning looking for animals, have just found something. They're not far from us, so we're going to try and get into that area as quick as possible. It's quite thick in that area, so I want to make sure we get into there as soon as we can with this small maneuverable vehicle that we're so lucky to drive around in, and make sure that we all get to see exactly what it is. The radio was a bit crackly, so I couldn't hear exactly what the animal was, but I know where to go and know that we need to get there fairly quickly, so hold on as we pick up the tempo a little bit. It won't be for long though. Within 5 minutes we will be where we need to be, even less than that. Bernie, come on. Trying to let Bernie know the vehicle we've just seen, but it doesn't seem like his radio is working. But it was worth a try, just to try and share as much of the information we can as possible with everyone. The reason why we need to hurry is because we are actually on our eastern boundary here, so everything on the right we cannot go to, everything on the left we can. Whatever Steph and Mark have found is just on the left hand side of the road, so I feel that if it does head to the right, we'll have to wave it goodbye. So it's another reason why I'm just picking up the tempo a little bit. This is exciting. After not knowing what we would be doing next, we got a radio call through from Stefan and Mark. And for those of you who don't know Stefan and Mark, they're two of the other presenters who are out tracking, searching for animals for us all to enjoy this morning. So they've certainly achieved what they set out to. But I guess the real test will be once we've established what it is that they found. Notice what the little bumps, or be wondering what the little bumps in the road are that we go over every now and then. There's one approaching here, and they're not speed bumps, but I guess they do indirectly serve that purpose. The reason why they are built into the roads, though, is in order to allow water runoff to be filtered off and drained off into the vegetation surrounding the roads, because if the road was allowed to build up momentum as water flowed down, it would simply turn into a river and wash away. Okay. Okay, copy. Thank you. Can you just ask if Steph is the third vehicle? Okay, copy. Perfect. Thank you. Basically, Stefan is passing information back to Tara in the final control room, and then Tara is relaying that information to me. And I've just got information that there's 3 vehicles in the sighting, which is the maximum that we'll allow in a sighting with any one animal. And that's not a problem though, because as soon as we get here, Stefan will make space for us. And we will take his place as the third vehicle. So we're just ironing out a few protocols that need to be adhered to ensure that we do respect animals and only keep 3 vehicles as a maximum per sighting. We're getting very close now, and I can't wait to see what it is that they found. Okay, well, I can see other vehicles, so we're in the right place. Now we just need to find out what exactly they're looking at. They appear to be coming towards us, so I think it would make most sense for us to wait here. So bear with us, folks, we're about to see something interesting. And where it is and what it is and where it's going to pop out, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure this vehicle will be able to help us and tell us where the animal is. Morning.
Apologies about the channel.
We're all in the same boat, Andrew. Okay. Thanks very much, Andrew. Have a good morning, everyone. Okay, well, we're getting warmer. We are getting warmer, and Andrew kindly just made space for us. And we now need to try and get you guys a view. It's very thick in here, so we're going to have to be sensitive and respect that. Excuse me, there is an animal here, and we don't want to interfere on its daily ongoings too much. So, okay. Oof, that's very thick. And I'm sure we'll get a little gap there. Maybe a little bit forward, Andrew, hey? Can you see it? There we go. That'll work. You got it, Andrew?
No. Ah, yes.
No. Oh. Well, there you can see it's a leopard. And She's just started moving off. Judging by her body language, she looked like she could be possibly stalking something in this thick bush. So we are going to bear that in mind and not get too close and potentially chase off whatever it is she may be looking at. But thankfully this vehicle is very maneuverable and we can slither through this thick vegetation with relative ease compared to the other vehicles. Eastern corner now of the Djuma property, and that's the furthest northeastern part of any area we can traverse. I've just seen Steph and Mark. We can now thank them for their hard work this morning. And they're just giving us a quick thumbs up, but we don't have time to chat with them. We'll thank them profusely afterwards, and I will pass on your thanks as well, because without them we wouldn't be watching this animal. And it is thick, so we do have to be cautious of not chasing away whatever it is that she's interested in, but you can tell by her body language that she's very focused and she can hear something moving through this vegetation. I'm not sure exactly who it is, but it could potentially be Karula, who's a female leopard whose territory encompasses Djuma, and we do get to see very often. There you may have noticed that she was scent marking, indicating that this is indeed her territory. And what a great change of tune. I didn't know what I was going to do next this morning until I got the radio call through from Final Control. And again, well done to Mark and Steph. Now, when following animals off-road, we try and, well, we know which trees we can and can't drive over. Some will spring back up, like the one I'm about to drive over now, and others will break and snap, so we try and avoid the ones that we're going to kill. And we also have to avoid certain plants that will puncture our tires. So there's various different plants that we're looking out for, but we are causing a very small impact on the environment here. Another thing we need to do is make sure that we, this is going to be a bit of a squeeze, is that we don't interfere with whatever the animals are doing. So I'm going to try and keep my distance and take the path of least resistance in order to not interfere with this leopard's hunting. Now, I'm sure a lot of our more experienced viewers are already trying to identify this leopard, and to do that they'll be looking at various patterns of the spots. You can look at different patterns on any part of the body really, but it's usually the face that helps to distinguish leopards from others. And I'll be interested to know who this is. I certainly don't consider myself as a specialist when it comes to identifying the different individuals we get out here. And thank you to you, the viewers, who so often come to the rescue and tell us who it is that we are looking at. Completely lost sight of her, but I'm sure we will get a visual of her again shortly. Again, I'd rather take a more open pathway and loop ahead of her general movement of direction than stay right on her tail. You can obviously imagine it's far easier for her to move around through this thick bush than it is for us. Got it there, Andrew. Negative. Okay. Well, we have temporarily lost visual, but like I say, nothing to worry about. I'm sure we'll find her again shortly. I wonder what it is that she can smell or what she's heard. But she has been moving in one prominent direction, and that's going to help us now in relocating her. I've just heard something, alarm call. It's either an Inyala or a kudu. I think. So let's just keep quiet and listen for a moment. I heard a small bark-like sound. But not all is silence. So maybe I was imagining things. Bulleray on Twitter, good morning and welcome on board. Bulleray is wondering if it's potentially Shadow, a female leopard that we see from time to time. It's highly, highly unlikely that this would be Shadow. We are very far away from her territory, and I would be confident to say that it's not going to be Shadow. We are in the far northeast of our property. Shadow operates to the far west of Arathusa. So it was a kudu, that alarm called, and I've just heard it again now. You may have heard it. There we go. So that's the alarm call of a kudu. I think. Oh, well done. Andrew's actually managed to find it. I couldn't see it, so I could just hear it in the thick bush. The kudu's a bit big for a leopard, especially a female, so it's not a missed opportunity, unless of course there was a young kudu that she would have tried to catch. What is interesting about this leopard's behavior, and I've just got a glimpse of her scent marking again. She's very actively scent marking, and that makes me wonder who it is and why the need for the increase in scent marking. Bear with us, we are going to get some more great views of her. But at the moment, she is moving around with a lot of purpose. Hopefully it won't be long until we get to show you this action. She should be somewhere just in front of us now. But was where I last saw her heading. But she is zigzagging, so she's no longer moving on a straight path as she was earlier. And we're actually driving back basically down the same way that we actually came before turning around here. So she's making us work for it, but I'm happy to spend as long as it takes to show you a few more glimpses of her. It's difficult. Usually now on the Game Drive channel we would be communicating with one another, making sure that myself or either Johan, who's the other vehicle in the sighting, has got a visual of the animal, which at the moment we are both unsure. Okay. Again, it's too soon to panic, and we will now loop around to where I did last see her heading. We're very close to a road here. And I'm just actually going to get onto it. It's incredible how they can throw you off their path. Not purposefully, she's just going about her business here with no concern of us. But in a very short space of time, if you are heading in the wrong direction, an animal can cover a lot of distance. Now, Karula's territory, and whether this is Karula or it isn't, but most female leopards' territories in this area of the Sabi Sands are about 1,500 hectares, which is about 4,000 acres. So that's the average size of a territory. You could almost say a square mile or slightly bigger than that would be the core territory of any given female. The males would have much bigger territories. But the territories do vary greatly, and I've got the other vehicle signaling wildly to us that they've seen the leopard, but the bad news is that she's crossed the road into the wrong place where we cannot see her. That she might be perched up on a termite mound though, so we might have one last view of her as she heads off. Oh, Andrew, you're gonna have to be quick here, buddy. Okay, so this is going to be the last view we have of her. She could very well zigzag back to our property, which is what I'm hoping. But isn't this beautiful? Watching her pace down through this golden grass on a beautiful sunny morning here. Like I say, her behavior is very interesting. She's moving with a lot of intent, but zigzagging from side to side, and I wonder what it is. Maybe she can smell the scent of another female that's been here, and that's why she may well be continuing to scent mark intensely, and these intense scent marks will therefore re-establish that it's her territory and not another female's, and she may even potentially want to have a fight with another female if it comes to that, in order to chase her off her territory. It's difficult because she's in very thick bush, but I'm just going to stand by her for a second in the hope that she might come back in a westerly direction, but it's not looking promising, and she's heading off further to the east to an area where we cannot go, sadly. But at least we got a glimpse of her. Well, that was really wonderful, and each sighting is always different. It doesn't matter if you're viewing the same animal. There's always differences, and this morning was a few brief glimpses of a beautiful leopard that was on the move, highly active, which is the best way to actually see them. They can spend many hours every day asleep, so we can consider ourselves lucky that we got to see it on the move. And now we can continue in search of other things. I'm not sure what else is out there. The radio is causing trouble for all of us guides. We're all battling to communicate with one another this morning. But here comes another guide, Ryan, who I'll be able to chat with and see how his morning's going.
Scotty.
Morning, Ryan. How are you, buddy?
Welcome back, brother.
Thank you very much. Morning, everyone. How are you doing? So, good morning.
Hey, very quiet on your side there.
Yeah.
Did you hear about Shadow and Emantuan there on Zebra Drive?
No. What's happening there?
She was just hanging around there.
Okay.
So if the guys establish a lock again, I'll send you guys a message later.
Okay, awesome. Thanks very much. Our radio is all. We're having huge trouble here.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here.
In search of silence. Cool. Just to let you know, the Karula is with Johan. She's just crossed over.
Okay.
And you might see him foraging around.
Okay, cool.
Not far down there, but I'm not sure if she's going to come back or.
Okay.
But she has crossed east though.
Awesome. Well, I'll go check it out. I'm actually looking for a dwarf now.
Okay.
Cool, Scotty.
Good. Have a good morning, everyone.
Bye, all.
We'll see you later. For touch.
I've just got some reserve work to do, so I'm hoping to be finished, but otherwise I'll check for touch, yeah?
Okay, awesome.
Shoot, brother.
Bye. So, that was Ryan. He's the head ranger at Arethusa and a wonderful, wonderful guy to have around these parts. He's a lot of good fun and a very experienced guide. And for those of you who are wondering where I will be going later when I said I'll see you at Touch, Touch is basically an abbreviation for touch rugby. So we play what is normally a contact sport, but we just touch one another because we don't want to get too physical out here, and we just run around some of the open clearings with the rugby ball, and that's how we do a little bit of our exercise out here. So something to look forward to, and it's also a great time where all of us can meet up and catch up, run around a little bit, and then head our separate ways. Okay, well, for those of you who are interested, one of our professional leopard identifiers called Raisa, who's one of our long-term viewers and has got an incredible ability and knowledge to be able to look at the leopards and be able to, judging by the different spot patterns on them, know exactly who it is. And Raisa human wealth, and just like all of our bank balances fluctuate and our wealth increases and decreases for many varying reasons, the same will happen for a leopard. There will be a part of any leopard's life where they don't have a lot of territory and they might be slinking around between different territories, flying below the radar, avoiding bigger, more dominant leopards. And then as they grow older and become more dominant, their territory will get to a maximum, a kind of peak size, when they are in their prime. And then obviously when they start getting old and weak again, then their territories will begin to decrease in size. And there's various factors that are personal, so her own age and her own strength, her own health. But there's also external factors, other leopards moving into the other areas, other leopards growing up, becoming bigger, stronger, that may start to push her out of her territory. So very useful for us to see where she is marking her territory and where she's moving. And it's the knowledge of us knowing where they move that helps us to sometimes find them. So considering that we now know that that female leopard was indeed Karula, who's a female leopard that we see fairly commonly out here because her territory encompasses Djuma, which is the property we spend most time on. And there's been a bit of speculation as to whether she's pregnant or not. We did notice a little bump on her belly in previous sightings. I personally didn't notice it this morning, but that simply could have been because I was busy concentrating on the driving and keeping an eye on where she's moving, that I couldn't have a very close look at her. That's not to say she's not pregnant, but it is just some speculation that I thought I'd incorporate you all in, especially if you are a first-time viewer. It's important to realize that there are certain animals that we do get to know on an individual basis, because people like Raisa can help identify them from all around the world, and because we see them on a fairly common basis, we get to know their movements, who their old offspring may be, and there's actually a great knowledge of the leopard family trees and the lineage of the different predators that we may see. It can sometimes be that you will see a female leopard mating with the specific male, and that way you'll know that in about 3 months' time you can expect to see leopard cubs, because it's about a 90 to 100 day gestation period. In this specific case, we didn't see her mating, but we did know, or we do know, that she lost cubs, very small cubs that she had just given birth to. We're not sure how the initial cubs were killed or how many there were, but we know that her final remaining cub was killed by a hyena. It does happen fairly commonly out here, and it's a big factor that causes leopard to lose their cubs. So since she lost those cubs, though, that final cub to hyena, that was at the end of December last year, they can come into season again very quickly and then mate within weeks of losing their cubs in order to get the next generation into the system. And as I said, we didn't see her mating, but I'm almost certain that she would have mated within a month after losing those cubs, which means that in the coming months we could expect babies. So we're just going on the assumption that because she lost cubs at the end of December, she could have mated within a month or two of that period, a 3-month gestation period. Anytime now we could see some tiny leopard colored fur balls, hopefully. Now, I'm not sure exactly what to do next, but as long as we're out here exploring, we could bump into anything. We're approaching Buffelshoek Dam. Again, it's not the hottest day yet, and waterholes are typically more active when it is warmer, but there's nothing to say that there isn't something drinking right this second. And we are heading into our dry winter, and water sources are few and far between. Even though we did get a few downpours in the last week that have filled up a few puddles with water. I might actually even be able to show you one of these little puddles of water where possibly Karula, the same leopard we've just seen, actually drank. Myself and Stefan were out looking for animals yesterday to try and help Brent out, and we followed tracks of, in all likelihood, Karula up to Buffelshoek Dam. But just before she got to the dam, there was a little puddle where we saw her footprints depress into the mud and show us exactly where she drank. I'm going to stop there and see if we can show you that as well. Just got a question through from Ellen on email. Good morning, Ellen, and welcome. And also thank you very much for sending this through, Ellen. Ellen is interested to know, she heard Ryan, the other ranger that we saw briefly now, mention something about Shadow and her bantuan. And Shadow is a female leopard who occurs to the west of where we are here. It is one of Karula's daughters from a previous litter, and Shadow has been seen this morning with the bantuan. Bantuan in the local language means baby, and basically they have been seen this morning in a different area to where they had their kill yesterday. So obviously they lost their kill, and they are somewhere on Arathusa, but it's a very thick area and we're very far from there, so we're probably not going to see them this morning. Bernie, I've got some good news. There was Karula heading east with Johan from just south of Pipeline, Chillicut line. So if you're interested, yeah. Yeah. Cool. Buffelshoek Johan. No problem. Okay, well, we didn't find any animals at Buffelshoek Dam, but we did find Bernie, and he's been keeping an eye out on all the animals here for us, so at least we've had some info from him, and that info is that there's nothing here at the moment, so that's perfect. Now what I'm going to try and do is show you. Oh, it's going to be difficult. Let me try and reposition ever so slightly. Actually, we can. You'll probably notice, even before Andrew zooms in too much, that there's a series of toes and pug marks heading down to this little puddle. And if you can zoom in now, Andrew, keep going, keep going. And a little bit towards us, away from the water. There you can see a few of her paw prints. The water has subsided quite greatly since she drank here, but just a little bit up more. They're the two that were closest to the water in the top right of the screen. Not easy for you to see, but there are some leopard tracks, and you can see the little toe prints there. And this puddle has dried up considerably from yesterday. It's almost a third as full, so these little puddles that we did get filled up by the rain are now going to start drying up, as you can see, and what that means is we can expect more action at the water holes. So to the screen, not easy for you to see, but there are some leopard tracks, and you can see the little toe prints there. And this puddle has dried up considerably from yesterday. It's almost a third as full, so these little puddles that we did get filled up by the rain are now going to start drying up, as you can see, and what that means is we can expect more action at the water holes. So there'll be less latent water lying around in these puddles, which helps us. In Virginia Beach, good morning and welcome. Teresa's interested to know that whether, if Karula, the female leopard we have just seen, did have cubs in that area, would her scent marks attract unnecessary attention to the cubs? I guess potentially, but regardless of where she scent marks, other animals will move. So I don't think it's going to have a huge impact if she did have cubs around. In the same token, though, I have yet to see a leopard ever scent mark in and around the den sites that she's using, but they are very secretive, and often for the first few weeks of a leopard's life, we may not know where their den site is or even see the cubs or know that they're born until she actually reveals them. They get born very small and underdeveloped and take a week or two before they can even become vaguely in control of their eyes and their legs. And in this very small and fragile and vulnerable stage, they are tucked away often in caves or burrows. But it's a good question. I sadly cannot refer back to any memories I have of leopard scent marking around her den site, but I don't think that she does have cubs there. I think she's mainly just going around establishing her territory and also possibly working out if there was another female working in that or moving through that area. It will obviously have an impact on where she does decide to give birth, the density and movement of other leopard. There will be an overflow and a fringe on the end of territories where territories overlap. It's not quite as clear cut and defined as us as humans do. Maybe we'll have a fence around our house and inside is ours and outside is not ours. You know, the animals here don't have those clear cut lines, and there is often overlap. And in those areas of overlap, which this would be for her, it's her northeastern territory, part of her territory, it could be an area where she might need to go over and ensure that other leopards do know that she is also moving there. In terms of the threat to cubs, though, and the den, I'm not too sure. Welcome back, everyone, and apologies for the patchy signal that we had through that area. It's my favorite road on the property, and it's got the worst signal, so not ideal scenario to be in, because I like driving down there, but sadly there's no signal. And whether or not we like driving down there, sometimes we just end up needing to take that road because it would make sense for us to have a short break in broadcast quality in order to be able to get to where we are needing to go. It also varies from day to day. Some days we can drive there and the signal's fine, and others it's not, so it's all quite a mystery to me. Anyway, apologies and welcome back, and hopefully no more glitches going forward. For those of you who have just joined in, we've had a great morning so far. The hyena den site was active where we started. We saw some giraffe, a few nice birds along the way, and then a few moments with Karula, a beautiful female leopard who was moving around quite intensely, zigzagging, patrolling and scent marking. But sadly she headed off into our neighbors to the east, so we waved her goodbye and are now in search of something else. By something I mean anything, and whatever we do come across out here that's interesting, be it bird or mammal or reptile or tree, we will stop and show you. I am thinking though of heading into the general area of a young male leopard that was seen yesterday afternoon with Brent, and it's the son of Karula from a previous litter. They're coming on about 2.5 years of age now, the two brothers, Quarantine and Kunyuma. And he was last seen up in kind of northwestern parts of Djuma, so on the opposite corner to where his mother was this morning. And I'm guessing that we might have a chance of finding him. He doesn't typically spend too much time up there, and I'm hoping he would have come back south, deeper into Djuma, and that is where we are going to go and explore right now. It can cover huge distances at night and during the day even, depending on how hungry they are or what they have come across on their travels. But it is useful to go and keep searching and checking areas where you know a leopard's moved fairly recently. In this case, last night he was seen there, because by keeping tabs on their movements on a daily basis, it's easier to know where to find them. Now, even if we don't find him this morning, but we just find some of his tracks heading back in towards Djuma, then at least we know vaguely what's going on. But if we miss that opportunity of reading into the tracks and signs the animals leave behind, and other animals come and walk on top of his tracks, then we will lose that information and not have a clue where to start searching for him. Oh, we've got some big old buffalo bulls leading us to the Gowrie Dam, or Vuyatela Dam, now on their way to go and relax and chew the cud. It's actually really awesome because one is caked in mud from wallowing and the other isn't. I'm just going to try to get them both in the same shot so you can see a contrast. Look at that. So the one on the left, as you can see, is covered in mud that they'll purposefully cover themselves in to help create a barrier to keep the flies off them. And Andrew, if you try and zoom in closely onto the one in the front, you will see thousands and thousands of flies moving on his body as he moves. Look at that. I would not want to be that buffalo. Imagine how frustrating it must be. one at the back doesn't have any flies on it, well, not nearly as many. So whether the flies are attracted to the mud, I'm not too sure. But they've got different beauty techniques. The one in the front likes to use the muddy mask, and the other one prefers to just use its tail to keep the flies at bay. They're very close to the waterhole, so whoever the zoomie is this morning, who's controlling the 24-hour live cam at this waterhole, get ready for 2 visitors. They're about to arrive. And basically, just to reiterate, there's a live waterhole camera at the waterhole that we're about to arrive at. And there's various people all around the world who have got permission and access to control the camera during the various slots or hours during the day. So there's somebody permanently manning and controlling where that waterhole camera zooms into. And there's often some great sightings that are had and some great information that gets handed on to us of animals that may have come down to the waterhole to drink, just like these old boys are about to do. The flies on this buffalo are absolutely mind-blowing. I'm just going to try and get into position in order to show you him walk past us, and that way hopefully see a few more of these flies that are pestering him. Okay. Now, as he moves, and as Andrew zooms in closer, you will notice a thick swarm of flies. There we go. Buzzing around him. Look at that. It's absolutely phenomenal how many they are. Look at that. Waves and waves of these flies that are now coming on to us. So now we've also got some stowaways who've jumped on board our vehicle. And what can you do other than embrace the flies? Andrew's got his buff on, so it's protecting most of his face from them, but there's still a few little exposed pieces of skin that they can get onto. Well, we're going to leave these boys to it, and if you would like to take a closer look at them, tune into the live waterhole camera, because they'll be able to show you the buffalo, and we will be able to go and show you something else, hopefully. So like I said before, we did come across these old boys. Oh, and another one. We are going to head up to the northwestern corner of our property and see if we can track down a young male leopard. There's been no sign of any lion around, and the lion do have bigger territories than the leopards, and are sometimes not necessarily on Djuma. We just got a question through from Doug in Connecticut. Good morning, Doug, and welcome to this morning's drive. Doug is interested to know how myself and Stefan managed to track down Quarantine yesterday afternoon, and it's good that you asked, Doug, because it's actually quite a funny story. We basically had an idea that he was in this area because just after Brent finished the morning drive, we managed to find quarantine very close to where we were now with those buffalo, close to the dam. And we found him on foot. We were walking into the bush because we could hear monkeys alarm calling, and we wanted to get into there quickly and quietly in order to try and find whatever it was that the monkeys were alarm calling at. We were fairly certain that it was him. Since that we were hot on the heels of this leopard, then the monkey started alarm calling, and we went in on foot, got a glimpse of him, and then he disappeared. It's quite a thick area, this, and we didn't manage to reach parked, and he was on his way back to the vehicle. When I got back to the vehicle, I saw the leopard. So very close to the vehicle, I saw the leopard off in the distance on the right-hand fork of the road. And at this stage, I didn't know exactly where Steph was, so I was kind of panicked. I heard some rustling in the bushes that I saw the leopard looking at, and I didn't know if it was Steph trying to creep away or hide from the leopard. It turned out to be a Franklin though, and quarantine stalked a Franklin. Steph came up from the back of the vehicle, we jumped in and called Brent over to enjoy. So it was quite funny that we had both basically split up from the vehicle, got back to it, and the leopard was in sight of the actual vehicle. I think it had moved because when we did get off the vehicle initially, it certainly wasn't where I saw it when we got back. But we got lucky, and always a rewarding feeling to be able to follow an animal's footprints and find it. It's not always the case, that's for certain. So myself and Steph got lucky, and great to spend time in the bush again with Steph. He was one of my mentors when I started out my guiding career for a lodge that he also used to work for, and he's an extremely experienced and knowledgeable guide that we are lucky to have on the WildEarth team with us now. So it's been great spending time with him after all these years, when he once upon a time was training me and teaching me a lot of the stuff I know today. So we certainly would never have imagined that we'd both end up here now working for the same company doing the same thing. But certainly very happy that our paths have crossed again. So yeah, Doug, that's the long story as to exactly what happened with the leopard tracks and how we found quarantine yesterday. It's interesting, he probably moved about a mile during the course of the day, and it was hot yesterday, so it does dispel the myths and thoughts that leopards are only nocturnal and that they'll only move at night. They will certainly move during the daylight, and even on the hottest days in summer, leopards can be on the move. Andrew, do you need a toilet break, or are you okay? Cool. Three hours is a long time to be sat in the vehicle on the move, so I was just making sure that Andrew was in control of his bladder, which he is for now. Just got wind of Ephraim on the radio, so I just want to try and get a hold of him because he's the only guy that I have been able to copy this morning. Ephraim. I'm Shannon 4. You're the only person that I can speak to. How's everything? Okay, do you have any updates? Okay, copy. Thank you. We left Karula going west over east over Cheetah Cut Line, north of Pipeline with Johan about half an hour ago. Okay. Again, just apologies. All the game drive vehicles for some reason this morning are having trouble communicating with one another. So maybe there was an animal, a monkey or a baboon up one of the signal towers playing with some wires that it shouldn't have been playing with. Who knows? But I can chat with Ephraim, who's one of the guides, and he just updated me on how his morning's been. No negative, I didn't copy that, but thank you very much. But sadly, he's got no information that's relevant to where we can traverse. There's some other lion, 2 members of the Matimba Coalition, which is the dominant male lions in this area. They're further to the north of us. Another pride of lion called the Torchwood Pride is on Torchwood to the east of us. We don't get to see them, and I've yet to see any members of the Torchwood Pride. Even though it's not good for our viewing this morning, at least the animals have been located, and by knowing where they are, it helps to keep tabs on them and easier to find them if you are constantly hot on their trail. Whereas if you lose track for a few days, you could lose bearings of where to look for them. There's a lion track here, but it doesn't look very fresh. I'm just going to double check to see if there are any more that I can look at. Just look at one track wouldn't be wise, because it's better to look at a whole string of tracks, and that way get a better idea of what exactly may be the scenario. Sadly, we've narrowly missed some elephants. It looks like a small herd of elephants that crossed into the north where we cannot go, but they were around, and there's some footprints of theirs indicating that to us. So, this is just our northern boundary that we've turned onto, and anywhere from here we could expect to find tracks of Quarantine, a young male leopard that we've come into the area to look for. it certainly would be within a feasible range from where he was seen yesterday for him to get to here. So I'm going to be checking carefully as we go for any footprints or any other signs that could lead us to him. Wondered to myself how we ever actually do manage to find anything out here. I guess we do spend hours and hours looking for them, but when you consider how many hiding places there are and how good a lot of the animals' camouflage is, like I said, it's a miracle we actually get to show you anything. And that always plays in my mind when we are searching for things. Also varies on the area of the reserve that you drive in, and all wilderness destinations will have a similar scenario to this. The roads aren't built in uniform squares or grids as they would potentially be built in a city or something that we could relate to. The roads and pathways are built in order to kind of follow riverbeds or certain watercourses, or also in certain areas where it's simply too thick to put a road, there aren't many roads. So you get areas with high road densities where there's a lot of options to sneak in and out of the roads and therefore cover ground. And there's other bigger blocks where there's huge distances between any roads and big gaps where animals may hide in the middle of that block and you would have no idea that they are there. So it's not possible for us to access everywhere easily, and I'd say probably in terms of percentage we can probably access from the roads about 20% to 30% of the wilderness area that we get to traverse, the rest of which becomes very difficult to get to. It's not impossible, especially with this little vehicle that takes us places where not many other vehicles can go. But it is something to bear in mind when we are searching for the animals. There's a very, very interesting animal that I've just found the track of here. And I'm going to get you guys to identify which animal it is. Is that going to work for you, Andrew?
Yes.
So you'll notice there's some tracks in the sand. I'm just going to chat to Texan quickly. Go ahead, Texan. Texan, she crossed east over Cheetah Cut Line, just north of Pipeline. Johan was still with her, but I left there about 45 minutes ago. It is difficult in the sunlight and the way the shadow's being cast, but I'm just going to try and change our angle slightly, and that way you may be able to see the tracks more clearly. Does that help, Andrew? Oh, I really want you to see these tracks. Oh, there we go. So you can all see that track. I'm going to jump out and give you an idea of how big it is.
Ooh, I'm not on that one. I'm on that one. There.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
So there's my hand. It's about the size of a hand, a bit bigger than a hand. And please send your answers through to what animal that belongs to, and specifically that animal's name. You can all tell us exactly who that animal is. It's a very friendly animal. It's not dangerous to us at all. And there's only one of them out here. They're very actually rare, the specific form of the animal. But they've provided us with, well, it has provided us with a lot of entertainment over the last few weeks and months. So let us know who that was walking down the road. Sadly, the animal was heading in the wrong direction for us to follow, and we're not going to follow those tracks this morning, but we are going to keep searching for tracks of a male leopard that are hopefully going to pop out in this area. Such a beautiful morning. It hasn't got as hot as I was expecting. It was a crisp, cool breeze. It was 16 degrees Celsius, which is about 61 degrees Fahrenheit. And it really is a wonderful time of year to be on safari in this part of South Africa. We've most often got cloudless blue skies and sunny days. Wrap up warm. Then as it warms up and all the areas where we have sometimes got sketchy signal on the perimeter of our broadcasting range, I guess, yeah. But it's unavoidable because we needed to come here in search of this leopard, so apologies for the brief delay, but it is hopefully going to be worth everyone's while when we find this leopard in the next few minutes. If we did find this leopard in the next few minutes, it would be sheer fluke, because it wouldn't have required much skill. We haven't even found a track or responded to an alarm call. So I'm actually joking. The chances of us finding one in 5 minutes are slim, but still possible. Update from Tyre and Final Control. It's now warmed up to 21 degrees Celsius, which is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's warming up slowly, but still a very pleasant day. Andrew's gone spot on with the camera work. Now you can tell by the way it's teetering from side to side which bird it is, and sadly shorter tails than some of the other raptors, and due to the fact that they do have that shorter tail, they tend to teeter from side to side as their balance isn't very good. Ah, here we go. We've got somebody getting their breakfast. And I love watching these birds. They've got such incredible skill in picking up the tiniest of little insects and feeding on them. We can't even see what it is that it's feeding on from here, but I can tell you what it is, because you'll notice a small dried piece of what is buffalo dung just in front of it, and it would have flown down, and you see how it just dislodged some more buffalo dung there. By overturning the buffalo dung, it exposes the tiny termites that are busy trying to break down that buffalo dung in order to recycle those nutrients back into the earth. Sadly, some of them are getting intercepted, and they themselves are being recycled nutrients back into the earth. But that is the circle of life that we live in out here. And it's the hornbill who's the predator this morning. A beautiful yellow-billed hornbill. They spend a lot of time feeding on the ground, and you can see it's very comfortable hopping around. Oh, that was a grasshopper it got. Well done. Well, we didn't get to see the Karula, the female leopard, hunting a little bit earlier, but I'm certainly happy watching this little bird go about hunting. And regardless of what predator you are looking at out here, they are all highly specialized and equipped in getting their food. They often make it look a lot easier than it really is. Now we could look out for other hornbills in this area. This is the yellow-billed hornbill, but we also get the red-billed hornbill, which looks very similar other than the fact that their beaks are different color, and the red-billed hornbills are slightly smaller. Also we get the grey hornbill, which is a uniform drab grey, so not nearly as good looking. And then a cousin of theirs, the ground hornbill, which is also a hornbill, but doesn't look really anything much like these guys. They're large birds. So those are the main ones we get here. But you do get various hornbills that occur throughout Africa. Some that are designed and evolved to live in dry, open areas, and others that are highly adapted to forest life. But a beautiful species of bird. Okay, well, we've got some answers as to whose tracks we were looking at earlier, and well done to all of you that got it right. And the correct answer would have been one Mark Hyena, also known as the Barefoot Professor. So, for those of you who are new, he's one of the other presenters, but he's allergic to shoes, he cannot wear them, and that is why we know that it was him walking down that road, because he would be one of very few people to walk around this area without shoes on. Again, big thanks to Mark and Stefan, who are out this morning searching for animals to share with us and to therefore share with all of you. And it was them who found Karula, the female leopard we saw a little bit earlier. Now, I've been a little bit naughty and I haven't been focusing on looking for tracks on this road. So I'm going to try and redeem myself now and quick check. There's some wildebeest that passed down here. As well as what looks to be some vervet monkeys. But no leopard. Not yet, at least. Okay, got an interesting question that's just come through from Charlie, and he sent it through on Twitter. Morning, Charlie, and welcome on board with us. Charlie's interested to know whether, because it's getting colder in the mornings, the animals will be more scarce. And that's certainly not the case, Charlie, so that's not something we need to worry about going into the winter. I personally feel that winter is probably a better time for game viewing purposes in this part of South Africa because the summer's very, very hot. And after the first hour or so of sunlight, you'll find a lot of animals seeking shelter away from the sun. Whereas in winter, they will move throughout the colder periods. It actually often makes sense to move when it's cold. So we can find a lot of activity in the early mornings in winter. And also animals coming out to sun themselves. So I personally think the winter mornings, once the sun is up, which is when we are most often out, is going to be more productive than the summer and more productive for a longer period of time, because that little window period we get of summer when it's cool in the morning but it's light enough for us to see is very short. Whereas now we could continue on game drive all day, and I wouldn't be surprised to see lion, leopard, or any of the animals that are typically nocturnal on the move. Yesterday is a perfect example. We tracked Quarantine. We found him a mile later that afternoon. So we probably left him or found him at 9:30 yesterday morning. We found him again at about 3:30, so 6 hours later over the course of the middle of the day. He probably moved over a mile. So good prospects, and the chilly winter mornings are going to be good for us. I've seen some tracks here, but I'm going to just continue slowly to make sure. Nope. Again, my mind was playing tricks on me. I thought I'd seen some leopard tracks, but it was in fact a bunch of wildebeest tubes that had joined together and made what looked to be toes. Good news is we might find some wildebeest. Their tracks have continued a long way down in this direction. There's also some impala tracks heading down here. And it's an animal that's going to become one of the stars of the show in the coming weeks, especially the male impala. And the reason for that is they are going to be competing very intensely with one another for specific little territories, and within those territories are going to be ladies that they're going to try and keep and herd and corral into their little patch of land. And watching the males fight amongst one another and over the ladies and try and keep all their ladies in a tight bundle makes for great viewing. It also makes for great hunting opportunities for the leopard and the lion. Because the male impala are so caught up in this testosterone-driven rutting season, they can often forget that there's a lot of danger out here. And it's when they're fighting and making this bizarre burping roar and locking horns with one another that it provides leopard and lion with a very opportunity to almost walk up to them and jump on their back. I've seen various clips of different antelope having the same thing done to them, but in this area impala will be under attack, and I can assure you that in the next month we will see a few dead male impala dangling up in the marula trees. I will put money on it. Whereas we haven't seen a male impala up a marula tree killed by a leopard, not once, I don't think, since we've been broadcasting, which is just on 5 months now. And hopefully this rutting season will start. They've been building up, and I've noticed an increase in their kind of interaction between one another, the male impala. And I've heard once or twice this burping, gargling roar that they let out as they chase one another around. But I'm hoping that the full moon that's approaching us in the coming week is going to be one of the indicators that triggers this rutting season. It's not cast in stone, but it is often said the first full moon in May will be the start of the rutting period. So we're very close to that period now, and stand by for some impala action. I'm hoping there's going to be this herd of impala whose tracks are heading down to this clearing that we're about to arrive at, and we might be able to see a little bit of that initial tension between the males, because it will be great to try and show you as much of this build-up as possible, because it really does become intense when they're in the full swing of things. All you will hear all day and night is these impala running around chasing one another. And like I've said, it's the most bizarre burping, gurgling roar you could ever imagine. If you didn't know that it was an impala and you were just in the bush and you heard it, you would be terrified and wonder what on earth it could be. I certainly felt that way the first time I heard them doing the ruts. Come on, impala. Where are you hiding? This is the open clearing I was hoping that the impala would be frolicking in. It It wasn't too long ago, well, I suppose it's a relative length of time, but a couple of months back we were in the same clearing, basically parked where we are now, watching wild dog chase a herd of impala across to the right, and that was a great afternoon spent with both myself and Brent in the sighting, watching that pack of wild dogs. You don't see wild dogs often, and they're an incredibly entertaining and exciting animal to follow, especially when they're hunting. Sorry, last station, copying you 2 out of 5. Copy, thanks. Reading you a bit better now. Go ahead with the message. Just got a question through from MK in Los Angeles. Good morning and welcome. MK is actually asking whether we get any parrots in the Sabi Sands, and are they less active in the winter? We certainly do get parrots, and I stopped the car as soon as I heard that question because I can hear some parrots calling off in the distance. But sadly, I think it's too far for the mic to pick up that audio. It's a dim screech even for me here. But they are around. I can hear them screeching not far away from us. Sadly, though, the parrot that we get to see, the brown-headed parrot, is not very big and not hugely numerous in these parts. So that, coupled with the fact that they're often in the canopy of trees searching for fruits, which makes it difficult for us to see them and show them to you, is why we don't often get to do that. Once or twice, and especially now in winter that it's drying up, we might get lucky getting them coming down to drink at the water holes, and that's where I've had my best viewings, where I could share sightings of these parrots with you. And the best I'm going to be able to do this morning is to show you a picture at least of what to expect for some of the future drives that I'm sure you'll tune into. And there are 3 parrots that we get in the Greater Kruger National Park, of which the only one that we get here is the one in the bottom right of the screen. So that's the brown-headed parrot. It's probably about 6 inches long from tip to toe, so not a very big parrot at all. The grey-headed parrot to the left is slightly bigger, but we only get them further to the north of the Kruger. And then the mayor's parrot, which looks very similar to the brown-headed, is also more common in the further northern parts of the reserve. And we will certainly do our best to try and find some for you, MK, but it's so often just the screech of their call that we hear. Oh no.
You ready to push?
Okay, well, the car just cut out, and I'm not going to try and start the car again. We've only got a few minutes left of the broadcast, and because our other vehicle is currently out of operation, I don't want to take any chances by trying to start the vehicle again. It could put some added pressure, unnecessary pressure, on whatever's caused it to cut out now. So I think we can just sit it out for the last few minutes, answer a few more questions, and then we're going to get the mechanic to come out and have a look at this vehicle here, because again, I don't want to take any chances by starting it now and putting any added pressure to whatever the problem may be. Okay, we just got a question through, or an observation through, from Ray. Morning, Ray. And Ray saw on the Djuma waterhole camera, the live camera that I spoke about earlier, that they saw a black flycatcher on the cam, or around the cam, and was asking if they are rare in this area. They're not rare, but they're also not very common. The tricky thing is with the black flycatcher is that they looks quite similar to the fork-tailed drongo, which is more common out here. Now, the fork-tailed drongo is a pitch black bird, as is the flycatcher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a picture of both and show them to you. So on the bottom right of the screen, you'll see, on the page, you'll see the southern black flycatcher. It's got a very square tail, and you can even see the text, brown eye, square-tailed drongo, has more thick-set appearance and red eyes. So you also get a square-tailed drongo, which would look similar to this bird. And even the fork-tailed, for the beginner, may get confused. So that's the black flycatcher. Well done on identifying it. And now I'm just going to find the fork-tailed drongo and the square-tailed drongo in order to be able to show you those. And here we are. So fairly similar looking, but as you can see, the fork-tailed drongo has got a much deeper red eye and a very prominent fork in its tail. So we do get both, and they can be confused, but black flycatchers are not hugely rare, but certainly not as common as the fork-tailed drongos, Ray. So well done on identifying that. And from myself and Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. To Nikki and Tara in the final control room, thanks for all your help there. And to all of you, the viewers, thanks so much for following us, for sending through your questions on email and Twitter. Sorry if we didn't get to answer all of them, but it's not easy. There's a lot of questions that come through daily. And what a morning it's been. The hyena den site, some giraffe, Karula, the queen of Djuma, a beautiful female leopard, and a few other little interesting bits and pieces along the way. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. And you can look forward to a safari with, in all likelihood, Mark this afternoon. Until that next time, have a good one.